Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio.
Hello and welcome to this week's pod, where we'll be digesting the final results from the Six Nations, looking ahead to the return of the Premiership and bringing you a roundup of all the latest rugby news. My trusty sidekick is with me in the studio from the Evening Standard, Steve. A much happier Steve, now that Man United have finally beaten their top team and produced a decent performance.
Finally won a game. I feel like we're talking about football every week when we come on now. But yeah, when I guess when Chelsea win the FA Cup, then we can stop talking about it, can't we? Again, yeah.
Listen, a cracking game of football, but that's not our interest. Our guest this week spent 12 years playing for Saracens, winning 4 Premiership titles, 3 European Cups in the process, and earned 45 caps for England. Since retiring from playing, he's gone from strength to strength, literally, with his health and wellness supplement business, 4-5. But he still finds time to keep a hand in rugby and helping currently the England rugby team with his Lineouts services as a consultant to Steve Borthwick's team. George Kruis, how are you, my friend?
Good, thank you very much. What a lovely intro.
Oh, yeah. I know. Well, listen, it's like a...
You've done your research.
It's like a Christmas carol, 4 Premiership titles, 2 European Cups. I mean, it was part of that golden era, of course. I guess because of your involvement, you're obviously glued to the internationals. I mean, is that... Outside of that, what's a normal weekend look like for you now? Are you still one of those guys that's still close enough to the game to want to watch a little bit of it?
I'll definitely watch. I'll definitely watch some games. I do enjoy still watching Sarries and some of the lads there still very much right in my age group. So I enjoy that. But really, look, the shackles are off in the sense that when you play for 12, 14, 15 years or whatever, and you get 40 weekends of the years dictated to you. It's just nice to be able to, go to your brother's wedding or go to actually plan stuff, or go on holiday and all those sort of things.
So just remind our listeners, when you retired, you did 2 seasons in Japan. You won 2 titles in Japan, which was pretty incredible. So you definitely chose the right team.
Yeah. No, it was a brilliant team actually. I was over in Panasonic. I couldn't have enjoyed it more. It
based in Tokyo or based in
North Tokyo. I mean, it's Greater Tokyo, right? So it's a big old place, but about maybe 45 minutes from Shinjuku, which would be like the happening area.
You must have been something out of
Godzilla over there.
Yeah, I mean, they must have been terrified of you.
Yeah, they've got these things where it has to make a noise on your camera phone. I won't go into why, but so you'll be going down the street and you'll be hearing pictures. It's not because of rugby; they don't really care for that. But it's just tall, blonde. I had a beard back there as well. It's just complete freak show.
It's like you're from another planet, literally.
Exactly that. Yeah.
First of all, we're going to go to Lyon for the final game of the championship. The atmosphere, I have to say, I was lucky enough to be there, working with ITV. The atmosphere is incredible. Just over 50,000, and I'm not sure what the French do right, but they definitely get it right. The build-up, they had a light show, laser show.
Do you think they've benefited from obviously taking the game away from Paris as they had to because it's being prepared for the Olympics? I mean, I know it's something.
Get some real fans, yeah.
Well, it's something that it's been cried about for years, isn't it? That England should do the same. They never will. They never leave Twickenham. But taking it around the country, Marseille, Lyon, Lille, it's made a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balancing act, because if you do that, you lose revenue. There's no doubt about that. I mean, what's Stade de France Twickenham is 80-odd thousand. Yeah. Lyon is 50,000, so 30,000. At RFU prices, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And maybe at this time in the year, the French Rugby Union are not in great shape. They've overinvested in their team. Their average spend has gone from 13 million euros to 20 million in the last 4 years. They got beaten in the World Cup. So they're definitely making cuts, but you have to say they had no choice but to take the games away from Paris. And I think I played in Marseille, I'm sure you have. So playing in places like Lyon, Marseille, a lot tougher than playing in Paris, definitely.
Yeah, they got a bit of a football-y sort of crowd to them. Yeah. They're quite spicy down there.
Have you ever played in that stadium, Lyon?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it does look like it's very atmospheric. Yeah, and the light show just helps it, doesn't it, before it starts? Yeah.
I mean, just talking about the game, obviously, it was an incredible game from an England perspective. People saying, well, what was success in this championship? Now, I know the team would always say at the beginning of the title, we want to go out and win the title.
Yeah.
But realistically, from where we were, I said at the beginning of the tournament, if we win 3 games, I'll be quite pleased with that, because we haven't actually done that for a few years. Very unusual for a team to go from there to there overnight. Yeah. And I think we did that, beating Ireland. And I think what we're looking for is a bit of consistency in performance. Now, you're back involved, George, in the England team. people keep saying, well, what's different from 2 weeks ago against Scotland to now to the French game? You've got to trust a group of players and you've got to be consistent with what you've told them. And I think for the first time in a while, Steve and his coaches have picked, give or take one player maybe dropping out through injury, a fairly consistent and settled team. And it makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's worth noting, I think, when you look at the Scotland game, they did go out to play. They just made a load of handling errors, and then that does have an effect on your momentum, has an effect on, when you look at any sort of statistic timelines when you're playing, if you lose back-to-back sort of possessions, then it has a detrimental effect, and you often lose points from there. So, I think they've been like brewing. It has been sort of they have been wanting to attack. They have been wanting to sort of play smart, decent rugby. I think the Scotland one, there were 3 tries from 50 metres out, and they did go there to attack. So I think to see that off the back of the Ireland game, and then the French game, obviously still good decent bit of sort of attacking shape to it as well, and like confidence in how they want to play. I think they have been building that, and I think just not everything. Things take time to layer in, and when you say, to your point, consistency of team, I think that is a big thing. You look at Ireland team, probably hasn't changed in 2-3 years. You look at New Zealand, the consistency to be able to layer stuff up is definitely a piece.
You know what I thought I saw in the Ireland game, which I think pleased everyone. Obviously, the gain line has been an issue for England, right? And as soon as you get over the gain line, and you win that kind of physical confrontation. I've been, lucky enough to get all the stats. I've been looking at George Ford. Every game that we played in this championship, he's got flatter and flatter and flatter. And in the French game, he was literally, making them make decisions so last minute. So I think guys like Ollie Lawrence have helped enormously. But for the first time in a while, I saw a bit of innovation in the line-out against Ireland. There was a couple of little cheeky ones at the front. And I'd like to
do we thank George for that?
Well, I'd like to think, well, listen, he can own up to it now. But, when I've seen England play at their very best in the last 4 or 5 years, when you were involved, Ireland in 2019, when we threw the first line-out over the top, the one in the World Cup against New Zealand, I think England had become a little bit predictable, if I'm honest. And I thought against Ireland, what was a breath of fresh air was not just the kind of energy and the passion and some pretty naughty clear-outs at the breakdown, but also the actual line-out. And tell us a little bit about your role and how how Steve's brought you into the England group.
Yeah, I think probably just Steve taught me a lot about line-outs. I've taught Maro a lot about line-outs, and I think really it's just if you're head coach, you've got a lot of plates to spin, and I think probably an extension of sort of mindset, and he, I guess, knows sort of what roughly I'd bring to the table. But essentially really just doing a lot of analysis. It's not really coaching led. It's like having a bit of a soundboard, presenting some themes, some sort of strategy towards it. I
mean, that's a big move for Steve, because that's an area where he's renowned, and he is the Yoda of that kind of thing. I mean, that's what he did. So for him to have the trust in you and say, look, I need your sort of eyes and ears on this, and let me know what you think, is pretty cool.
You don't actually go into training then; you're actually doing more of it in terms of
a lot online in the week. But like I was in Sunday, I've been in back and forth, and over the World Cup I was back and forth to France most weekends. But yeah, I think it's just the fact that he's not a forwards coach now. He's head coach, and you just can't. There's not enough time in the day, and you need people who sort of a rough bit about to slot in.
He still likes to climb up the ladder and catch the balls, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
never seen who can miss one of them, mate.
Yeah. I think for me, momentum in these sort of things is absolutely everything, and to be able to look back and go, right, we lost 2 games by the Scotland game was at 15 points or something, but really the last 3 other games that we've lost have been by like 2 or 3 points, and then you start putting that in a wider thing, and some of it hasn't been pretty, but you start looking at a wider thing, and you got by that Scotland game you've maybe won, if you'd won those games by 1 or 2 points, you've like 11 out of 12 or something. So I think they've done a good job of like grinning and bearing through the tougher bits in terms of hustling down and making sure that you get some wins. But now I feel like they are sort of express themselves a bit more, and that momentum is key. I'd much rather be a side that's like gone somewhere moving somewhere looking at, but instead of being like a fully settled side that is still getting sort of thirds and bits like that.
And also the way that they played, particularly against Ireland and France, I think bodes very well for the tour in the summer, because if you're going to get anything out of New Zealand, and that's the way you got to play. I think personally, the attacking game, we were saying England at the beginning of the tournament were clueless, devoid of any ideas of how to attack, and then at the end of the tournament they've outscored France 4-3 away from home. They put 3 tries on Ireland, so we've got to give them a lot of credit.
I'm real pleased for Richard Wigglesworth and the whole coaching. You see, I get lucky enough to dip into some of those meetings, and you see the effort and the sort of the amount of sort of thought that goes into coaching those lads, and the and the endless hours, and the how smart they are in terms of how to create strategy, how to create plans, how to use psychologists to work with the team to make sure that it hits bang on. And I think the win against Ireland was a big one, but clearly to back up and get some good tries against France. I'm happy for the coaching side, but still please so much more to go.
How good was Ben Earl? I mean, this was unbelievable. So he carried the ball more than anyone else in the tournament. He played every minute. He was 6 on metres made, and the next best forward was 26, and he conceded how many penalties? 1.
Well, 1 at the end,
right
which is what's so
was the killer.
Really.
But I mean, as a former Sarries teammate, I mean, how good was he? England's player of the tournament.
I'd say definitely. Yeah, like some of those stats, but he's just consistent. Where he's gone from to where he is now is just like it's. And in terms of, and he'd be happy enough saying, like, in terms of like when he turned up to Sarries, he came with like an attitude that wasn't the right one, and was spat out largely for bits of it. But the way he's like, and you can be tainted with that brush for ages, and you could be, especially in a team like we had at Sarries, where if you're not exactly clicking with everyone, then you can be spat out pretty quickly. He took everything on board. Not only from an off-field perspective, from an on-field perspective, and he is so good, and he's still so young as well, which is pleasing. He's got lots more growth in him.
So should we just have a look at the other weekend results then? We've obviously been working with the QBE predictor across the tournament. Forecasts for the weekend were a Wales win, 25-15 over Italy. That was actually the other way around, 24-21 to Italy. Ireland 27, Scotland 15 was the forecast, and it finished 17-13. And France 30, England 19, and that finished, as we know, 33-31. So the results actually a lot closer in a lot of the games. And across this tournament, as you mentioned, 10 of the 15 have been decided by 5 points or less, which is unbelievable, really, isn't it? But I think we have to say congratulations to Italy on their best ever finish. I've just finished watching Full Contact, and you watched that and you watched the Italians during the Six Nations last year to where they are now, and it's an unbelievable transformation, isn't it?
Ireland get the headlines, obviously, and England, naturally, because of their status and who they are, we're talking about them. But I think the story of this tournament has been Italy, really, because to have beaten, I mean, they gave England a run, and that result in Rome doesn't look like the worst result in the world for England now.
It doesn't now,
does it? They beat
Scotland,
they've beaten Wales, they were one kick away from beating France. I mean, it's phenomenal. And I think there's just been a transformation. We've been hearing about how much they're improving, particularly at under 20 level, and that's coming through. And Michele Lamaro, the captain, he sort of epitomises that. He's just beaten the record for total number of tackles made in the tournament. I mean, they're tough boys now. I mean, the old Italians used to be not the face, but they are tough boys. I think Gonzalo Quesada, he's actually constructed a game plan that reflects their personality, and I think that's really important for the Italians. They look good, they look okay, and they got hammered in the World Cup. So you look at where they were, and I think Kieran Crowley. He's obviously a top class coach, but they didn't really gel. The players didn't really gel with him, and vice versa. I think, Quesada in such a short space of time, they look organised. They look, there's structure to their game. and the results are starting to come. So I think we've put to bed that notion that they should be relegated now, don't you?
Yeah, let's forget about who said that. Yeah, from the start of the tournament, and probably the Welsh are hoping that there's not relegation because
I was going to say, should we talk Wales, but probably not.
Time now for the Evening Standard's rugby correspondent Nick Purewal to join us. Nick, you managed to arrive safely back from France. Overall, a lot of positives for England moving forward.
No, it's an excellent performance by England. Obviously, the result just eluded them. I thought it was fairly amusing to hear Steve Borthwick channel Michael Jordan, of all people, in his "We didn't lose, we ran out of time." I'm not entirely sure how much Borthwick's got in common with the Chicago Bulls basketball legend, but there we are. England played very well, and I think one thing that is to their great credit is after 2 rounds of this tournament, you wouldn't have been saying England are the team that people would pay to watch, neutrals, but all of a sudden they are. So finally they've clicked into a bit of gear. I think there's been quite a lot of tension behind the scenes in terms of the coaching staff with people pushing in different directions, but really some of that is Borthwick almost not laying down the law, but just demanding high standards of his assistant coaches to lobby for certain directions for the team to go in. He wants a lot of substantive information when it comes to stats and detail and things like that. So I think Richard Wigglesworth deserves a bit of credit for that, for sticking to his guns and forcing the issue a little bit. And you've seen that come through in some of the attacking patterns, shapes they're putting together now. And when they've got the personnel, then they've got a nice blend. I still think they'd be slightly concerned about depth in certain issues. Still need probably more power options in midfield, but they're getting there. So it's a good start. It is tangible progress, and that's what they were looking for. So I think they can be relatively pleased with how things have gone.
Do you think that's the end then for, let's say, Danny Kerr, I would guess? Joe Marler looked like he was getting a little bit emotional on the pitch at the end of the game. Have we probably seen the last of them in an England shirt?
Well, we asked Danny Kerr that question after the match, and he said, I said to Danny, is that 101 and out? Will you raise your bat, or are you 101 not out still? And he said, well, for now, 101 not out. So nothing.
I think he hit you with the bat. Yeah,
it's always hard to know, isn't it?
Why did he do that?
Always hard to know. I mean, I played in 2007 in the World Cup final, and I think I was pretty clear in my mind that was my last game for England. And then I had 6 months of club rugby, and then that was it. And I think for me, because I knew that I'd already made that decision, the next 6 months I was very focused. When the light goes out at international level, you've got to be very clear about what you're doing after that, because the game, it's a different game. It's a very different game. So he signed a 1-year deal with Quins, and I suppose as long as he's still playing rugby, if he's fit enough, why would he not make himself available for England?
I think sometimes the players have to be fairly sort of political with some of their answers, because they want to give Steve Borthwick the opportunity to move on if that's what he wants to do. And I think if Borthwick wants to go in a different direction and select somebody younger, then Danny Kerr would be the first person. He'd be gutted, but he's not the kind of guy who would stand in the way of that. So I think that kind of answer to that kind of question allows Borthwick the space to do his job and make the selection. And then, so it's effectively saying to Steve Borthwick, I'm available if you need me, but I understand if you don't.
Now, this week, we are all going to be together raising money for Dallaglio Rugby Works and the annual Six Nations lunch at Boysdales, which we always look forward to, which starts at 11 a.m. and finishes at about 6 a.m. the next day. It isn't 6 a.m.
I think it's a post Six Nations wrap-up annual breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Now, talking
that's the best way to describe it.
Raising money is very, very important, obviously, for the charity. Lawrence, you're about to embark on Cycle Slam, which is next month. How's your training going? And also, how can people donate money to what is such an incredible cause? Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, we're cycling for 10 days, 150 kilometres a day, up, down, up again, up even more. It's horrific, to be honest with you.
Just looking at your face, I can see how much you're looking forward to it.
I'm really not looking forward to it. I'm not a cyclist. I have been not doing as much training as I should. I'm one of the few people listening to this pod that's probably delighted the Six Nations is finally finished. Yeah. Because it means I might be...
You can focus now.
I can focus now on getting myself cycle fit.
How many weeks have you got left?
I think it's about 4 weeks.
That's
Well, listen, I mean, nothing like leaving it till the last minute, like all good exam papers. People want to donate, they can go to Just Giving, Lawrence Dallaglio, or they can go to Rugbyworks, dallagliorugbyworks.com. And please give generously, because all of the money that you donate will go towards helping these young people turn their lives around.
And this is the biggest event that you do across the calendar, and goes a considerable way towards raising that sum of money that you need to exist, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, the job we do is, we raise 1.5 million a year. I'm working currently, the charity is working with over 2,000 young people each year. We could be doubling, tripling that number quite comfortably. But this is not about giving them a rugby ball and feeling good about ourselves. This is about having a meaningful, tangible impact on their lives and actually turning people's lives around. And that's something very, very special, but does require a little bit of funding. And whatever money you're able to give, I can assure you it will go a very, very long way. Well, listen, get yourselves down to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for Saracens against Harlequins on Saturday. We'll be back here bright and breezy on Monday morning, next Monday, to review all the weekend's Premiership games. But until then, my thanks to both Steve and Nick from the Evening Standard, to our wonderful guest this week, George Kruis, and of course to VoxPod Studios. A big thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. See you then.